You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by Aborn & Company. I'm your host, Kyle McNaught. Thanks for checking us out. First off, apologies for the delayed release. I typically try to have these out before your Friday commute because I'm positive the first thing you want to listen to as you drive into your Friday is me. But I wasn't actually able to get the podcast recorded, edited, and posted in time because yesterday was TransTech2020. Yeah, I know you, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, the past couple episodes you've heard me talking about, you heard Jill and I kind of have a whole conversation, and TransTech was awesome. TransTech, again, was a gathering of curious-minded transportation professionals discussing some of the serious challenges they face on a day-to-day basis. The event was awesome. The energy in the room was insane, and everyone really jumped in both feet and talked about some real stuff. So huge shout out to everyone that came and took a chance on this little event. I know that everyone at Aborn was super pumped at the end of it, and we already cannot wait for the next one. Like, Jill came into my office, first thing was like, that was awesome. 6 months, I cannot wait. So we're really excited. And I know some of you guys saw me there. Those who attended, you saw me taking a bunch of photos. So I'm going to try to post that on social media. So check our Aborn Facebook page and Instagram page. And if you didn't get to attend it, go there and see kind of what the event looked like. It was a super small gathering, but tons of like interesting stuff. So I say I tried to take the photos because what I actually was doing at the event most of the time was taking notes as trying to scribe so everyone could be really invested in the conversation. So I'm going to plan on cleaning up the notes and sending them along to the TransTech folk. But I was thinking about it on my ride home after the event. I thought it kind of would be a cool little recap for you guys of what we discussed. Definitely talking to you guys, the consulting logistics audience. I mean, the event wasn't this secret meeting in the Harvard Club. Okay. I mean, it was in the Harvard Club, and it did feel a little secretive just because you're in the Harvard Club and you have to push these weird elevator buttons to get the thing to send you all up. But it wasn't secret. It was an open forum. And I really think that the more open and sharing you can be with your knowledge, the better an industry will kind of be at the long run. So at the same time, this isn't a one-way conversation. Please reach out to me and talk to me about some of the challenges you've experienced or some of the solutions you have based on what we were talking about. Like, you, the audience member, I want to talk. Reach out to me. Let's know. Like, I'm going to do a little recap of what we talked about. But I mean, if you think that like, hey, you guys missed about this, or I think this is a good solution for what you talked about, email me, kyle@abornandco.com. It's the email. Hit me up. All right, let's go on to my notes. What I wrote from all the discussions. Now, remember, this is discussions. It's in no way a case study, a research topic and stuff. This is truly just trying to capture a conversation. So if you disagree, if you agree, again, join the conversation. Let's talk. All right, the day was broken up into two parts. The first was focused on transportation issues, mainly, and it was a roundtable conversation with everyone. So it wasn't one person presenting. And how we kind of got that whole roundtable conversation going was we asked in our registration process, what was the most prominent issue people were facing? And the responses we got tended to boil down to a couple of themes, but at the event, we kind of focused on two major ones, capacity and carrier service. So for capacity, we asked the question, how do you find it today? Well, it depends on the urgency and on what service levels you need. One suggestion was to meet the carriers regularly. Sometimes they're stronger than you'll ever even know, so a face-to-face was agreed as the best practice. We talked a lot about the ocean market, as a decent amount of folks in the room actually had challenges there. And one of the main things we discussed was the absence of choice when it comes to carriers. While it's making things harder with stuff like IMO 2020 leading to more blank sailing, it's also was seeing the market mature more as less and fewer players means that those carriers can interact a little bit easier. So blank sailing, kind of going back to that, is something to really focus on because we actually had an ocean carrier more or less in the room, and he said this pretty fascinating fact that when a ship is pulled offline, it roughly costs $10,000 a day. A day. Like, think about those numbers. Like, they're not making money. That while like you would sit there and think, well, you're not like a significant cost for ocean freight and ocean carriers is their fuel cost. So, hey, you're not sailing, you're not spending money on fuel. It still costs $10,000 a day when they pull this stuff offline. So, something interesting. And then from the ocean, we transitioned into sourcing bids. And one of the big topics from that was what's the role procurement can play when you're kind of sourcing your bids. And one of the struggles we discussed was that it's just different metrics that procurement and transportation have. Procurement really focuses on low cost. The factor like density is something that only transportation will care about. So breaking down silos, changing culture, it's becoming vital for you as a shipper so you're not pulling out your hair every time you have to make your case. Really break down those silos, talk to your procurement. They just have different metrics. It's not like they're mad or they're anti-you. There's different things they're measured on. And I think one of the last big things that grabbed everyone's attention was the discussion around customer service centers. So they're shrinking. In fact, there was this stat that was brought up that within the next 3 years, 85% of customer service will be replaced by AI. I'll say that again. Within the next 3 years, 85% of customer service will be replaced by AI. Lots of carriers are developing it. They're putting it into their pricing and they're influencing shippers to use their technology. So I believe, this is off the top of my head, not something I wrote down, but I believe they're building in penalties if you're going to pick up a phone and call someone. They want you working off their technology. So something just to really think about and kind of sticking with that a little bit. And the one final thing I'll talk about before we transition into the second part of what we did at TransTech 2020 was the discussion around sensors. This one was kind of cool because we actually had one attendee who talked about like how they're using sensors to track their products like all the way to their DCs. So it provides peace of mind for the attendee, but it's expensive. He said it costs about $50 to $150 per unit that will have about a 10-day life when it's fully charged. The shipper will try to tell the truckers or let them know in advance that their sensors and they're being tracked. And so far, no carriers have refused their load because of the measurement. There was a fun little story that maybe I'll have the attendee come on and tell it a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, they're paying for peace of mind. Like that's all it is. And he was flat out like, hey, I just paying so I know. It goes over a speed bump and like you're going to get alerted every 15 minutes, which can become a nuisance, but you know where your stuff is. And another attendee actually mentioned how it's becoming more commonplace, especially with like products like pharma, where like they mentioned that like some sensors will even alert the cops if a trucker takes a different route. So technology's there, man. It's coming all up. And speaking of that, there was a ton of stuff that we like wanted to talk about that I just didn't have like the time or industry. Let me reread what I wrote. There was a ton of stuff that we went into. Sorry about that. Trying to do this on the fly and very limited sleep. So always going to be fun there. There was a ton of stuff that we went into that I just don't have the time or even industry knowledge to go into. So if I missed anything, TransTech attendees, let me know. It's going to help me with the notes. So did I just skip out on some really fascinating conversation? And B, get on the podcast and let's talk. All right. Because as I told you guys, I always need guests. It would be great to have you all come on and talk about what you learned. So reach out to me. You guys know my email. All right. For the second part of the day, we focused on technology and in particular, some of the biggest issues when it comes to implementing TMS. So to lead that talk, we had Aborn's own Bill Muse set up to present on what his experience is in his 20 years of work in the software. I really butchered that sentence. So we had Bill Muse set up the presentation and kind of present to the group, right? And he has 20 years of work with software. Bill, or as I like to call him, Moose, actually that's what he tries to call himself, is an awesome guy that everyone really enjoyed, not only his knowledge, but the energy he brought to the table. Bill's worked for some really, really, really interesting companies in the past, including a company that created the Wi-Fi stack that's still used in Android devices today, a company that created the first one-chip phone used by the troops, and he worked for MercuryGate. I mean, it's a platform I'm sure most of you guys have heard about. I mean, it's the largest independent transportation management platform on the market right now. So yeah, Bill brought some knowledge. The first thing Bill did, it was kind of a fun little exercise, especially after the break, was he went around the room and asked everyone, what do they ship? We got a bunch of answers. It was fun. And we got everything from kegs and food stuff to LED and slides. The problem is that information doesn't matter to software. Your nomenclature has to change. When you're doing an implementation, a TMS implementation, the terminology has to change. Find out what the software calls what you're looking for and embrace it. Because if you don't, at the end of the day, one of you's got to give, and software can only give by programming. The master data, or who owns the golden record and where it's located, was kind of the next part, the really, really big part of the discussion. And Bill brought up a ton of points during the master data discussion, but it all boils down to the master data is the most important thing to get right to have a successful implementation. The biggest failure he's seen, on the other hand, is integration. There's just so many breakpoints. So then what makes a successful implementation? Well, get the master data right. Reporting depends on stuff being right every single time and the stuff being the same every single time. So that's why master data, that's the real big thing with master data. It'll take time to get implementation done and then document. Bill said, like, you don't write, like when you're documenting, don't write it for people who know what they're doing. Write it like a kid has to follow it. And the room completely agreed with that point. I mean, it's to even the extent that like they use images. A lot of people are like, yeah, I take screenshots. I got to showcase every single thing. It's tedious, I know, but seriously, you never know who's going to read your document and have to make a decision. There was a really interesting example that got brought up. The question got raised though, with all these pain points, why even go to technology? Well, and this is where we had a really fun conversation. Service. Service is why you go to technology. Everyone will get happier. You'll get tracking and tracing. You'll get planning and reporting. And your reporting will even get better. And with better reporting, you can recognize revenue. But what technology doesn't do, and this was a topic that got a good debate started, so I'd love for you to let me know your thoughts. What technology doesn't do, save money. If you go to software to save money, you're going to fail, according to Bill. Now, that's not to say you can't eventually save money with technology, but if your goal from day one is to save money, that process isn't where it's at. Again, according to Bill. Remember, I'm just learning, so if you disagree with me, and not everyone agreed with that point by Bill, I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know. Email me, kyle@abornandco.com. All right? Bill talked, and he got a ton of energy and conversations going, which is great because we actually were going to be doing this, so let me restart that. Bill's talk was great. Bill's got a ton of energy and he got a ton of conversations going. And it's good because we're actually going to do a free webinar based on this talk a little bit later this month. So you can register for that right now, you in the listening audience. October 22nd, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Bill will be joined by Jill Clifford, guest of the pod, to present communicating your freight operation needs when transitioning to a digital platform. It's a half-hour webinar that will have a ton of interaction. Trust me, Bill loves back and forth and hates being a solo presenter, so he's planning on having a ton of interaction with the viewers. You can register today at abornandco.com/webinar. Get in there fast. The spots are limited, so register for the free webinar. You know what? If you can't attend it, it gets recorded. It's on demand. I'll try to record, I'll try to set up a video too so you can see Bill just go crazy. It's so much fun. So with that plug done, the final talking point that ended the day was probably one of the most fascinating ones that was brought up by a really interesting player in the room. It was one of our carriers. So we actually we want open, honest discussions. So we invited a ton of people. So we had one of the carriers in the room. And as I was kind of wrapping up, I go, is there anything they want to talk about? And he goes, I want to talk dynamic pricing. The Uberization of everything is starting, folks. But why would a shipper want this? It's a great question. Why would you want to add the hiccup of worrying about if you're even shipping on a better day for the pricing? When you got to move product, it's got to move, right? Well, it comes back to that idea of shipper of choice. If you're working on a dynamic pricing structure, in theory, you won't flood the carrier's network on a Friday or at the end of the month. Because you don't do that, they're going to like you more and you're going to become more and more of a shipper of choice. The pricing structure sort of works like an incentive program or incentive system to tell you as a shipper what would help out the carriers more. Now, I know I'm basically giving the carriers all the love in this type of stuff, so talk to me, let me know. But the prediction kind of came out of the room that it eventually could be like like an airline pricing system, more or less. So this was something that we wrapped, and then, like, as we wrapped, it was still being talked about. And I'm sure during the next TransTech, there will be investigated again. So again, reach out to me, let me know. Overall, it was an awesome event, and I personally want to thank everyone who attended and took a shot at this rather unique event. It's hard sitting at a table with strangers and saying, here's where I struggle with my job, but I really feel like we did that, and that like amazing conversations happened because of it. A huge shout out to the Harvard Club of Boston. My girl Dawn was amazing to work with, and Flavio at the front desk, while he took a ton of my candy, also helped take away a ton of my stress. FYI, I told him to take the candy, so that part didn't even matter. Bill Moose, my man, cannot thank you enough, dude. You got on your knees with me. You helped me set up cable. You helped tape down everything. You helped me think when we were doing the setup. So in general, there was nothing more I could ask for you, but like you helped me with the setup. Like I already was like, man, Bill's doing so much for me for the talk and whatnot, but the setup was awesome. So thank you so much for that. And I mean, way to knock it out of the park for the discussion. It was so freaking cool. Jill, the master data file of Aborn, the right person, the golden record. You were amazing. I know I've said it to you a ton in the past couple of hours, but seriously, leading the conversation is hard. Never mind participating in one. And you did both, and you got everyone involved. I cannot think of anyone else that could have jumped into that role that you fulfilled and absolutely crush it like you did. So I know we talked this morning. I know that you can probably hear me say this because our walls are pretty thin at Aborn, but thank you, thank you, thank you. Stephen Aborn, I know you want to be behind the scenes like me, and I force you to be in front of that camera all the time because you help me learn. But seriously, man, thank you for helping me with every role I needed with, and just let me take a chance on this event. I mean, it was my first time putting something like this on, and the support you and Jill provided made all the difference. Isaiah, dude, huge thanks for securing that bag when it came to the after-event gathering. Society on High was dope. The entire Aborn team, guys. That was like, well, first of all, I apologize for you guys having to stare at the bags of candy the day before the event. But A, the candy's all yours now. It's in the break room. Go get it. And B, thanks for helping, man. And thanks for holding down the fort and just helping me learn, right? Like, I couldn't have been able to take these notes and actually understand what the heck I wrote down if it wasn't for the patience and just the open learning you guys have all brought as I kind of continue my journey into the industry. Finally, Jess, cannot stress enough how bummed everyone was that you couldn't make it, but you were 100% a day one commit to the event, and we would have never been able to get all that stuff done without you. I mean, just those little things that you helped me with that were awesome. So next time, Jess, you're coming. To anyone I'm forgetting, I am so sorry. I'm super tired. I'm still kind of sick, and I'm trying to get this podcast out so I can get a newsletter out so I can focus on interviews that I have next week for the podcast, so I can get the webinar ready for 2 weeks so I can... You get the point. If I forgot you again, I am so sorry, but thanks to everyone involved in TransTech. You guys were all awesome. Next time, your butt's coming, Jess, no matter what, no excuses, and we'll see you guys in 6 weeks. Or sorry, 6 months. Wow. All right. Well, that's it, man. That's our show. Thanks for humoring me with this. I know I can't believe I went this long, but it was a cool event. So as always, I want to know what you thought of all this stuff. Email's great. LinkedIn's another awesome location. Check me all out. Kyle McNaught. That's MAC. Kyle McNaught on LinkedIn. Kyle at abornandco.com. Email. There isn't going to be a YouTube video for this episode because watching me stumble through a script I wrote isn't really quote-unquote compelling content. / I don't want you all to see how many jump cuts I had to make because reading's hard for a Florida-educated swamp man. I even butchered that joke. That's why I could not record this. But yeah, I can read. But yeah, check out our YouTube channel anyways, man. There's tons of past episodes and some really cool quick learning videos. I like posting these videos on YouTube because that way you can kind of maybe watch it or have it up on the background when you're working. Or always download the podcast and you can listen on your drive. We actually just released the first of our series, Becoming the Best, on our YouTube channel. So For the inaugural episode, we showcased our client Shein family companies as they become the best beverage distribution company in the world. So go check that one out and stay tuned for more videos in the future. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube to be notified when we put up something new. Just search abornandcompany.com. So, for everyone here at Aborn, thanks for listening to Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Peace.